The crowd gathered around Sarah Mitchell's blood-stained driveway like vultures circling carrion, their whispers cutting through the pre-dawn darkness as she knelt beside the dying German shepherd. His matted fur was sticky with blood from 3 bullet wounds, each labored breath rattling like dice in a cup. The kind of sound Tom made in those final moments she'd tried so hard to forget. But the blood wasn't what made her hands shake. It was the dog's eyes, those amber eyes that looked exactly like her dead husband's. "Sarah's finally lost it," Martha Bennett hissed from the sidewalk, clutching her robe like a shield. Old Pete Morrison spat tobacco juice into her prized roses. "Spending her last dime on a dog that'll be dead by sunrise." Behind the lace curtains of the upstairs window, 8-year-old Lily pressed her small palm against the glass, tears streaming down her face, the same way she'd watched them lower her mother into the ground 6 months ago. "Call Bobby Crawford," Sarah commanded, though her voice cracked like winter ice. "Tell him Tom's dog finally came home." Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Pine Ridge, Colorado had seen better days, but Sarah Mitchell remembered when Main Street bustled with life instead of foreclosure notices. She was 52 now, though the mirror showed a woman who'd aged a decade in 3 years. Her weathered hands, once steady enough to stitch quilts that won county fair ribbons, now trembled from more than just the October cold. The house on Maple Avenue, the one where she'd raised Eleanor, where Tom had built that tire swing in the backyard, stood like a monument to everything she'd lost. Tom had been gone 3 years come November. They'd called it suicide, found him in the garage with his service weapon. 23 years of marriage ended with a flag-folded funeral and questions nobody wanted to answer. The nightmares from Afghanistan had gotten worse after Bobby Crawford visited that last time, but the police said case closed meant case closed. Sarah knew different. Tom had survived Kandahar, had come home broken, but breathing. He wouldn't have left them, not by choice. Then Eleanor, sweet Eleanor, who'd inherited her father's gentle eyes and her mother's stubborn streak. The cancer took her in 6 months. Aggressive, the doctors said, as if cancer could be anything else. She'd made Sarah promise to take care of Lily, had gripped her hand with surprising strength for someone who weighed 90 pounds at the end. "She's special, Mama," Eleanor had whispered. "Don't let them take her." Now Bobby Crawford wanted Lily. Detective Crawford, Tom's supposed brother-in-arms who'd shown up at Eleanor's funeral with flowers and a lawyer. Child Services said Sarah was too old, too poor, too broken. The custody hearing was in 72 hours, and her bank account held exactly $1,847.23. The lawyer wanted $5,000 just to show up. Duke, that's what the tag said, lay on her kitchen floor now, his massive frame taking up most of the space between the table and the stove. 7 years old, according to the military tattoo inside his ear, MGH 4521. She'd recognized the designation immediately. Military working dog trained at Fort Gordon, the same unit identification Tom's dog had worn in Afghanistan, the dog that had supposedly died in the ambush that sent Tom home. But Duke hadn't died in Afghanistan. He'd been shot 3 times on Highway 285, left to bleed out like roadkill. Sarah had found him trying to crawl toward town, toward something, his determined movements reminding her of Tom's last fight to stay alive. The vet had laughed, actually laughed, when she'd brought Duke in. "This dog needs $5,000 in surgery minimum. Put him down and save yourself the heartache." But Sarah had looked into those amber eyes, so much like Tom's, and seen something the vet missed. Recognition. As if Duke knew her, had been searching for her. Now, as dawn approached and Duke's breathing grew more labored, Sarah wondered if she'd simply found another way to say goodbye. The autumn sun hung low over Pine Ridge as Sarah drove her rusted Ford pickup along Highway 285, returning from another fruitless meeting with legal aid. 4 o'clock on a Thursday, and her options had dwindled to nothing. The lawyer's words echoed in her head. "Mrs. Mitchell, without proper representation, you'll lose custody. I'm sorry, but that's the reality." That's when she saw him. At first, Sarah thought it was a deer hit by a truck. The dark shape lay crumpled in the drainage ditch, barely visible among the tall grass. But as she slowed, something made her pull over. Maybe the way the afternoon light caught on what looked like fur. Or maybe it was just that bone-deep exhaustion that made her want to delay going home to an empty house. The smell hit her first. Blood and infection. The kind of smell she remembered from Tom's wounds when he'd come back from patrol barely alive. Then she saw the dog. Duke was massive, even in his broken state, a German shepherd with a coat that might have been beautiful before the blood matted it down. 3 bullet wounds, she could see them clearly, 1 in his shoulder, 1 in his side, and 1 that had grazed his hip. Professional shots meant to kill, not wound, but somehow, impossibly, the dog was still breathing. His eyes opened when her shadow fell across him. Amber eyes, intelligent and aware despite the pain, eyes that looked so much like Tom's that Sarah's knees nearly buckled. The dog tried to lift his head, managed only an inch before collapsing back, but his tail moved, just barely, a single weak thump against the ground. "Oh, sweet Lord," Sarah whispered, dropping to her knees beside him. The gravel bit through her worn jeans, but she didn't notice. Her hands hovered over his wounds, afraid to touch, afraid to hurt him more. "Who did this to you?" Duke's tags were military issue. She saw that immediately. The same type Tom had worn. When she leaned closer to read them, the dog whined softly, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than pain. His nose touched her hand, cold and dry. He was dying. Sarah's phone showed 3 missed calls from Bobby Crawford. She ignored them, instead dialing the only vet in town. Dr. Hartley's receptionist put her on hold for 5 minutes before the vet himself got on the line. "Sarah? What's this about?" "I found a dog. Shot 3 times. He's dying." "Bring him in." The drive to the clinic was the longest 10 minutes of Sarah's life. Duke lay across the truck's bench seat, his head in her lap, blood seeping through her jeans. She talked to him the whole way, nonsense mostly. The same way she'd talked to Tom during his nightmares. "Stay with me. Just stay with me. We're almost there." Dr. Hartley was waiting at the back entrance, but his expression changed when he saw Duke's condition. He examined the wounds quickly, professionally, his face growing grimmer with each passing second. "Sarah, this dog needs emergency surgery. We're talking $5,000 minimum, probably more. The infection alone." "I have $1,800, Sarah said. "It's all I have. That won't even cover the anesthesia. I'm sorry, but please." The word came out broken. "I can't watch another living thing die. Not today." Dr. Hartley sighed, ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The humane thing would be to put him down. He's suffering." That's when Bobby Crawford walked through the clinic door. Still in his detective suit, still wearing that concerned expression he'd perfected over the years. Sarah hadn't heard him pull up. "Sarah, what's going on?" "Martha Bennett called, said you were acting strange." His eyes found Duke, narrowed slightly. "What's this?" "A dog. Someone shot him." Bobby moved closer and Duke's entire body tensed. A growl so low it was almost inaudible rumbled from the dog's chest. It cost him. Sarah could see the effort, the pain, but Duke's lips pulled back, showing teeth despite his weakness. "Easy, boy," Bobby said, but he stepped back. "Sarah, you need that money for the custody lawyer. Don't throw it away on a dying animal." Sarah looked between Bobby and Duke. saw the way the dog's eyes tracked the detective's every movement despite the pain. Made her decision. "I'll take him home," she said. "If he's going to die, he won't die alone." Sarah's kitchen had become a makeshift trauma unit. She'd cleared the table, laying out clean towels and what medical supplies she had, leftovers from Tom's bad days when the VA was too far and the nightmares too close. The overhead light cast harsh shadows as she worked, her movements automatic, remembered from nights when Tom came home bleeding from fights he couldn't explain. Duke lay still as she cleaned his wounds, only his eyes tracking her movements. The bullets had done their damage, but it was the infection that worried her most. The shoulder wound was the worst, angry red streaks spreading beneath his fur like poison through veins. She'd seen infections like this before in Afghanistan footage Tom couldn't stop watching. Wounds left too long in the heat and dirt. "I know it hurts," she murmured, pressing gauze against the seeping wound. Duke's breathing hitched, but he didn't pull away. Tom was the same way, never wanted to show pain. 11 o'clock. Lily was asleep upstairs, had been since 8. Sarah had told her about the dog, watched her granddaughter's face light up, then dim with worry. "Is he going to die like Mommy?" Lily had asked, and Sarah hadn't been able to lie. "I don't know, sweetheart. We'll do our best." The house creaked around them, settling into night. Sarah had done what she could, cleaned the wounds, applied antibiotic ointment, wrapped them in clean bandages. Duke's fever was climbing. She could feel it through his fur, that dangerous heat that meant his body was losing the fight. His breathing had grown shallow, each inhale a conscious effort. She sat on the floor beside him, her back against the cabinets, Tom's old combat jacket wrapped around her shoulders. The jacket still smelled like him, gun oil and Old Spice, though she knew that was probably her imagination after 3 years. Duke's head rested near her leg, close but not quite touching, as if he wasn't sure he deserved comfort. "Tom had a dog in Afghanistan," Sarah said, needing to fill the silence. "Never told me much about him, just that he was the best soldier in the unit. Said the dog saved his whole squad once, detected an IED before anyone else could. Bobby Crawford was there too. They all came home except the dog. Tom never forgave himself for that." Duke's ear twitched at Bobby's name. Just a small movement, but Sarah noticed. She'd gotten good at reading small signs, microscopic changes that meant the difference between a good day and a bad one with Tom. Midnight passed. Duke's breathing grew worse. Sarah found herself praying, the kind of desperate bargaining she'd done in hospital waiting rooms, the kind that had gone unanswered twice before. But what else was there to do at the edge of losing everything? That's when Duke started moving. It wasn't much at first, just his head lifting, nose pointing toward the basement door. Sarah thought he was delirious, the fever taking hold, but his movements were too deliberate. He was trying to get up. "No, boy, stay still." She put a gentle hand on his side, felt his muscles trembling with effort. But Duke persisted, dragging himself inch by painful inch toward the basement door. His determination was heartbreaking and familiar, the same way Tom had acted those last weeks, driven by something he couldn't or wouldn't explain. The basement door had been locked since Tom's death. Sarah had cleaned out his workshop, donated his tools, but she'd left his military footlocker down there. Couldn't bear to open it, to sort through the pieces of a life cut short. Now Duke was pawing at the door, whining low in his throat. "What is it?" Sarah asked, but she was already reaching for the key, hidden on top of the doorframe where Tom had always kept it. The lock turned with a click that seemed too loud in the quiet house. Duke half fell down the wooden steps. Sarah followed, flipping on the single bulb that cast yellow light over the concrete floor. The basement smelled of mildew and memories. Tom's footlocker sat in the corner, olive drab metal covered in dust. Duke crawled to it, collapsed beside it, his nose pressed against the lock. His breathing was labored, each breath a monumental effort, but his eyes remained fixed on the footlocker with desperate intensity. Sarah knelt beside him, ran her hand over the cold metal. "Tom never let me look in here. Said it was just old army junk. Nothing important." But Duke's reaction suggested otherwise. With trembling fingers, she worked the combination. Their anniversary date, Tom was predictable that way. The lock clicked open. Inside, she expected uniforms, medals, the usual military memorabilia. Instead, she found photographs, dozens of them. Tom in Afghanistan, his squad, and, her breath caught, Duke, the same German shepherd now dying on her basement floor, younger but unmistakable. As in photo after photo, Tom and Duke were together. Patrol photos, mess tent photos, one of Duke sleeping beside Tom's cot. But it was what lay beneath the photos that made Sarah's hands shake. A manila envelope marked "Insurance" in Tom's blocky handwriting. Inside, more photos, but these were different. Bobby Crawford meeting with men in Taliban dress, money changing hands, map coordinates, dates, and times meticulously recorded in Tom's notebook. A folded paper fell out. Sarah recognized Tom's handwriting immediately. "If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Bobby Crawford sold out our unit. 4 men died in that ambush. Duke saved the rest of us. Bobby tried to have the dog destroyed to cover his tracks. Said Duke was too aggressive. I smuggled him home. Been hiding him at the Brennan farm. If anything happens to me, it wasn't suicide. Bobby knows I have evidence. He'll come for it. Trust Duke. He knows Bobby's scent, knows what he did. I'm sorry, Sarah. I tried to handle this the right way, but..." The letter ended mid-sentence. Duke's breathing had gone quiet, too quiet. Sarah dropped the letter, pressed her hand to his chest. Still there, barely. His eyes were open but unfocused. That 1,000-yard stare she'd seen in Tom's worst moments. "No," she whispered. "Not now. Not when I finally understand." 3:33 in the morning. She knew because Tom always woke at 3:33, screaming about the ambush. Duke's body convulsed once, then went still. His breathing stopped. Sarah pressed her face against his fur, tears coming hot and fast. Another loss. Another failure. She'd been too late, just like with Tom, just like with Eleanor. The evidence didn't matter if there was no one left to protect. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The basement was silent except for her quiet sobs. Then Duke gasped. His eyes flew open, focused and alert in a way they hadn't been all night. His body shuddered back to life, and when he looked at Sarah, she could have sworn she saw recognition, not just of her, but of purpose, as if dying and coming back had reminded him of unfinished business. Duke struggled to his feet, shaky but determined, and looked toward the stairs. Dawn was coming, and with it, Sarah realized, came Bobby Crawford. The first light of dawn painted Pine Ridge in shades of gray and gold, but Sarah barely noticed. She sat at her kitchen table, Tom's letter spread before her, trying to make sense of a marriage built on secrets. Duke lay at her feet, his breathing steadier now, but still labored. Whatever had happened in the basement, that moment when death released its grip, had given him strength, but not healing. The wounds still seeped, the infection still burned beneath his fur. 6 o'clock came with Lily's footsteps on the stairs. Sarah quickly folded the letter, tucked it into her pocket. Her granddaughter appeared in the doorway, dark hair tangled from sleep, wearing the oversized T-shirt that had been Eleanor's. "Is the doggie okay?" Lily asked, her voice small. Duke lifted his head at the sound, tail managing a weak wag. Lily's face lit up and she moved closer, kneeling beside him with the careful grace children showed around injured things. "He's hurt bad," Sarah said gently. "But he's fighting." Lily stretched out a small hand, let Duke sniff her fingers before stroking his ear. Mommy said Grandpa had a dog in the army. Said he was the bravest dog in the whole world. She looked up at Sarah with Eleanor's eyes. Is this Grandpa's dog? The question hung in the air like morning mist. Sarah thought about lying, about protecting Lily from the weight of truth. But hadn't there been enough lies in this house? I think he might be, Sarah admitted. Duke's response was immediate. He pressed his nose into Lily's palm, a soft whine escaping his throat. Recognition, Sarah realized. He knew Tom's scent on the child, the genetic echo of the man he'd served. The doorbell rang, too loud in the quiet morning. Sarah checked the window. Dr. Hartley stood on the porch, medical bag in hand. She hadn't called him. Sarah, he said when she opened the door, his face grave. Bobby Crawford called me. Said you had a dangerous dog here, threatened to report me to the state board if I didn't come check. I'm sorry, but the dog's not dangerous, Sarah interrupted. Come see for yourself. She led him to the kitchen where Lily sat cross-legged beside Duke, singing softly, the lullaby Eleanor used to sing, the one about mockingbirds and diamond rings. Duke's eyes were closed, but his breathing seemed to ease with each verse. Dr. Hartley stopped short. That's the same dog from yesterday? Yes. He knelt beside Duke, professional hands gentle as he examined the wounds. His frown deepened with each discovery. This doesn't make sense. These wounds, the infection should have killed him by now. His fever's down, his heart rate is stabilizing. He looked up at Sarah. What did you do? Nothing special, just cleaned the wounds, stayed with him. Mrs. Mitchell, I've been a vet for 30 years. Dogs don't recover from this kind of trauma without intervention. He pulled out a stethoscope, listened to Duke's chest. His lungs are clear. Yesterday they were full of fluid. This is a miracle, Sarah suggested. I was going to say impossible. He sat back on his heels. Bobby Crawford is outside, you know, parked across the street. He's got Martha Bennett with him, says she's filing a complaint about a vicious animal. Sarah moved to the window. Sure enough, Bobby's unmarked Crown Victoria sat beneath the oak tree, Martha's pinched face visible in the passenger seat. Watching, waiting. He can't take Duke, Lily said, her small voice fierce. Duke hasn't done anything wrong. Dr. Hartley packed his supplies slowly. I'll need to file a report. I can buy you maybe 48 hours, say the dog needs observation, but Bobby's pushing hard on this. Says it's about child welfare that you're endangering Lily by keeping a potentially rabid animal. Duke's not rabid, Sarah said. I know that. You know that. But Bobby Crawford carries weight in this town. He paused at the door. Why does he care so much about one injured dog? Sarah thought about the photos in the basement, the evidence of treason and murder. I wish I knew, she lied. After Hartley left, Sarah made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, normalcy in the face of chaos. Lily fed Duke tiny pieces of egg, which he accepted gratefully. His strength was returning incrementally, each hour bringing small improvements that defied medical explanation. The phone rang. Sarah's lawyer or former lawyer. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm calling about the custody hearing. There's been a development. Robert Crawford has filed an emergency petition. He's claiming you're mentally unstable, that you're endangering the child by keeping a dangerous animal in the home. The hearing's been moved up to Monday morning. That's 3 days away. I know. I'm sorry, but without proper representation? The lawyer trailed off. The message was clear. No money meant no help. Sarah hung up, her hands trembling. 3 days to find $5,000. 3 days to prove she wasn't crazy. 3 days to protect Lily from a man who'd murdered her grandfather. Duke struggled to his feet, limped to the back door. Sarah let him out, watched as he made his way to the garden, to the spot where Tom had built the chicken coop years ago. He began to dig. What's he doing, Grandma? Lily asked from beside her. I don't know, sweetheart. But Duke was methodical, his movements purposeful despite the pain. After several minutes, he unearthed something wrapped in plastic. A USB drive, Sarah realized as she retrieved it. Military grade, waterproof. Tom's backup plan. Inside, she plugged it into Tom's old laptop. Files loaded, bank records, communication logs, surveillance photos. Everything Tom had gathered about Bobby's betrayal, but also something else. Video files dated the night Tom died. Sarah's finger hovered over the play button. Did she want to know? Did she want to see? Grandma, someone's at the door, Lily said. Bobby Crawford stood on the porch, badge prominently displayed. Behind him, 2 animal control officers waited with catch poles. Sarah, I'm here officially. We've had complaints about a dangerous dog. I need you to surrender the animal. Duke appeared at Sarah's side, standing steadier now, a low growl building in his chest. The animal control officer stepped back. He's not dangerous, Sarah said. He's injured. That's not what Martha Bennett says. She claims the dog tried to attack her this morning. Martha hasn't been near my property. Bobby's smile was cold. Are you calling a respected member of this community a liar? Sarah, you're not helping your custody case. Just give us the dog. It's better for everyone. No. The word hung between them. Bobby's face darkened. You're making a mistake. I'm trying to help you here. That hearing on Monday, I'll be testifying about your mental state, about your inability to make sound decisions, about how you're endangering Lily. Is that a threat? It's a promise. He leaned closer, lowered his voice. Tom's gone, Sarah. Let the past stay buried. Give me the dog. Focus on keeping your granddaughter. That's what Tom would want. Duke's growl deepened. Bobby stepped back, hand moving instinctively to his service weapon. Leave, Sarah said. Unless you have a warrant, get off my property. Bobby's jaw tightened. Monday, Sarah. One way or another, this ends Monday. She watched them drive away, her heart pounding. Duke pressed against her leg, offering comfort she desperately needed. Inside, Lily was crying quietly. They're going to take Duke away, aren't they? She asked. Just like they took Mommy and Grandpa? Sarah knelt, pulled Lily close. Not if I can help it. She spent the afternoon on the laptop, reviewing Tom's files. The evidence was damning. Photos of Bobby meeting with Taliban commanders, bank records showing large deposits, communications that revealed how he'd sold out the patrol route. 4 soldiers had died in that ambush. Tom and Duke had barely survived, but evidence was only useful if someone would look at it. She tried calling the FBI, got transferred endlessly. The state police said it was a military matter. The military said it was a local issue. Bobby had spent 3 years making sure all the doors were closed. As evening fell, Duke led her outside again, this time to the old barn where Tom had stored his hunting gear. Duke pawed at a loose floorboard until Sarah pried it up. Another cache. Tom's service weapon, loaded with a note. If you're reading this, he's coming for you. Protect our girls. Trust Duke. Saturday arrived with thunderclouds and the promise of rain. Sarah woke to find Duke standing guard at Lily's door, his wounds seeping through the bandages but his stance steady. He'd appointed himself protector, resuming duties abandoned 3 years ago. Dr. Hartley arrived unannounced, looking haggard. Bobby's pushing hard. He's got the mayor involved now, saying you're a danger to the community. I've been ordered to declare Duke a public health hazard. Will you? He sighed. I took an oath to do no harm. That includes not helping corrupt cops cover their tracks. He knelt beside Duke, began changing bandages. This healing rate is still impossible. By all rights, this dog should be dead. Maybe he has unfinished business, Sarah said. Don't we all? Hartley applied fresh bandages with gentle hands. "I bought you time, but not much." "If Duke can walk, you might want to consider leaving town." "I can't. The custody hearing—" "Sarah, I've known Bobby Crawford for 15 years. He doesn't make threats he can't follow through on. Whatever this is really about, he's not going to stop." After Hartley left, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't run, but she could prepare. She spent the day teaching Lily to hide in the secret space Tom had built behind the water heater, a paranoid addition from his worst days that now seemed prescient. She loaded Tom's weapon, placed it where she could reach it quickly. She copied all of Tom's evidence onto multiple drives, mailed one to Eleanor's college roommate in Denver with instructions to open it if anything happened. Duke watched it all, understanding more than any dog should. When Sarah showed him the hiding spot, he memorized it. When she practiced the route from Lily's room to the safe space, he learned it. A soldier preparing for one last mission. Saturday night brought rain and darkness. Sarah sat in Tom's old recliner, Duke at her feet, Lily asleep upstairs. The house felt like a fortress waiting for siege. Every sound made her jump. The settling of old wood, the rain against windows, the wind through the oak tree. At midnight, Duke's head snapped up. A low growl built in his chest, different from before. This wasn't a warning. This was recognition. Someone was coming. Sunday dawned gray and oppressive. Sarah hadn't slept, had spent the night watching shadows move across the yard. Duke hadn't left his post by the door, standing despite exhaustion and pain. Whatever he sensed in the darkness had kept him vigilant. The phone rang at 7, an unknown number. "Mrs. Mitchell? This is Sharon Davies from Child Protective Services. I'm calling to inform you that we'll be conducting a home visit this afternoon. Mr. Crawford has filed serious concerns about the environment you're providing for Lily." "On a Sunday?" "Given the urgent nature of the concerns, yes. Please have Lily available for interview." Sarah hung up, her stomach churning. They were closing in, tightening the noose. She looked at Duke, saw her own determination reflected in his amber eyes. "We're not giving up," she told him. "Not now." She spent the morning cleaning obsessively, trying to make the house look like the perfect environment for a child. Lily helped, understanding with the wisdom of loss that they were fighting for their family. Duke supervised from his post, occasionally alerting to sounds only he could hear. At noon, a van pulled up. Not CPS, a locksmith. Sarah watched from the window as he began work on the front door. "What are you doing?" she called out. The man looked embarrassed. "Sorry, ma'am. Work order from the bank. Property's in foreclosure. We're required to change the locks." "I still have 2 weeks." "Not according to this." He showed her paperwork. "Payment was due yesterday. When it wasn't received, the bank accelerated the foreclosure." Sarah's blood ran cold. The payment wasn't due for 2 weeks. She had the paperwork to prove it. But Bobby had connections at the bank, had probably arranged this to force her out before the hearing. "You can't do this. I have a child here." "I'm sorry, ma'am. You'll need to vacate by morning." Duke appeared at her side, his presence enough to make the locksmith step back. The man finished quickly, left new keys on the porch, and drove away. Sarah stood in her own doorway, suddenly a trespasser in the home she'd shared with Tom for 20 years. The CPS visit came at 3. Sharon Davies was a thin woman with kind eyes that turned cold when she saw Duke. "Is that the dog Mr. Crawford mentioned?" "Yes. He's a trained service animal." Not quite a lie. Duke had served, just not in the way she meant. "I'll need to see Lily alone." "No." Sarah's voice was firm. "You can interview her with me present or not at all." Sharon's expression hardened. "That's not how this works, Mrs. Mitchell." Duke moved between them and Lily, who had appeared on the stairs. His stance was protective but not aggressive, a clear line that said, "No further." "Your dog is threatening me," Sharon said. "He's standing still. I'm calling the police. Do what you need to do." Sharon left, promising to return with officers. Sarah knew she'd won a battle but lost the war. Bobby would use this against her, paint her as unstable and dangerous. As evening approached, Duke grew increasingly agitated. He paced, despite his injuries, checking windows, whining at doors. Sarah had seen Tom act the same way before, bad nights when the memories pressed too close. She made dinner, soup and sandwiches, comfort food. Lily barely ate, her eyes tracking Duke's movements. "Something bad's going to happen, isn't it?" Lily asked. Sarah wanted to lie, to promise everything would be fine. But Lily had lost too much to believe in false comfort. "I don't know, sweetheart, but whatever happens, we'll face it together." Night fell like a curtain. Sarah tucked Lily into bed, showed her again where to hide if needed. Duke took up position in the hallway, equidistant from Lily's room and the stairs. A tactical position, Sarah realized. He was planning for combat. She tried to stay awake, but exhaustion won. She dozed in the chair, Tom's jacket around her shoulders, his pistol within reach. At 3:00 a.m., Duke's bark shattered the silence. Not a warning, an alarm. Full-throated, desperate, the sound of a soldier announcing contact with the enemy. Sarah jerked awake to see shadows moving outside, multiple figures trying to stay hidden. Her blood turned to ice. Bobby Crawford wasn't waiting for Monday. He was coming now, under cover of darkness, just like the night Tom died. She grabbed the pistol, ran for Lily's room. "Sweetheart, get up. Remember what we practiced." Lily didn't argue, didn't cry. 3 years of loss had taught her that sometimes adults said now and meant it. She slipped out of bed, barefoot and silent, Duke guiding her to the hiding spot. The kitchen door splintered. No knock, no announcement, just violence in the night. Bobby Crawford entered first, not in uniform but in dark clothes, face half hidden by a ski mask he hadn't pulled down completely. Behind him, 2 other men Sarah didn't recognize. Not cops. Hired muscle. "Where is it, Sarah?" Bobby's voice was calm, conversational. "Tom's insurance policy. I know you found it." Duke burst from the hallway, 90 pounds of fury despite his wounds. He hit the first intruder at full speed, jaws locking on the man's arm. The screaming started immediately. "Shoot the damn dog," Bobby ordered. The second man raised a pistol. Sarah didn't think, just reacted. Tom's weapon bucked in her hands. The man spun away, clutching his shoulder. "Drop it!" Bobby had his service weapon out, aimed at her center mass. "Drop it now, Sarah!" Duke released the first man, turned toward Bobby. Blood dripped from reopened wounds, but he advanced anyway. Protecting, always protecting. "Call him off or I'll kill him," Bobby said. "Like you killed Tom?" Bobby's mask slipped, showing his face clearly. "Tom couldn't leave well enough alone, just like you. All you had to do was grieve quietly, take the insurance money, move on, but no, you had to play detective. You sold out your unit. 4 men died because of you. 4 men died because that's what happens in war." Bobby's composure cracked. "You think I wanted that? You think I had a choice? They had my daughter, Sarah. The Taliban had Katie. What would you have done?" Sarah's mind reeled. Katie Crawford had died in a car accident 5 years ago, or so everyone believed. "They killed her anyway," Bobby continued, his voice breaking. "After I gave them everything, they still killed her. Sent me pictures. So yeah, I covered it up, because admitting what I'd done wouldn't bring anyone back. It would just destroy more lives. Tom knew. Tom figured it out. Couldn't let it go. Said the families deserved to know." Bobby's weapon steadied. I begged him to stay quiet for both our sakes, but your husband was always too noble for his own good." Duke crept closer, low to the ground, a predator stalking prey. Bobby tracked him with the pistol. "Don't," Sarah warned. "You've taken enough from this family." "I don't have a choice. None of us do. That's what Tom never understood." Bobby's finger tightened on the trigger. "I'm sorry, Sarah. For all of it." Duke lunged. The gunshot was impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Duke's body jerked mid-leap, the fourth bullet of his life punching through his chest, but momentum carried him forward, jaws closing on Bobby's gun hand. The weapon clattered away as both crashed to the floor. Sarah heard herself screaming, saw Duke's blood spreading across linoleum Tom had installed their first winter in the house. Bobby threw the dog off, scrambled for his weapon. That's when they heard it. Sirens. Multiple vehicles, growing closer. "You called the cops?" Bobby's face went white. "No." Sarah kept her weapon trained on him, moved to Duke's side. The dog was still breathing, still trying to protect even as his life drained away. "But someone did." Dr. Hartley appeared in the broken doorway, cell phone in hand. "I've been watching your house since yesterday. Figured Bobby might try something. State police are 2 minutes out." Bobby looked between them, calculating odds. The 2 men he'd brought were down, one unconscious from Duke's attack, the other bleeding from Sarah's shot. The sirens grew louder. "It's over, Bobby," Sarah said. He laughed, bitter and broken. "It's been over for 5 years. I've just been pretending otherwise." He looked at Duke, something like respect in his eyes. "Hell of a dog. Tom trained him well." "Tom didn't train him. Duke was always like this. Loyal to the end." Blue lights flooded the windows, voices shouting commands. Bobby Crawford, decorated detective and hidden traitor, raised his hands in surrender. The next minutes blurred together. Police securing the scene, paramedics working on Duke, Lily emerging from hiding to throw herself at Sarah. Through it all, Sarah kept her hand on Duke's side, feeling each labored breath. "Ma'am, we need to transport him," a young paramedic said. "Not for dogs," Sarah wanted to say, but Dr. Hartley was already loading Duke into his van. "I'll do everything I can," he promised. "This dog survived the impossible before." The state police had transformed Sarah's kitchen into a crime scene. Yellow tape, evidence markers, photographers documenting every blood drop and bullet hole. Sarah sat on the front porch with a blanket around her shoulders, Lily pressed against her side, watching strangers catalog the violence that had shattered their home. Detective Maria Santos from the State Bureau of Investigation had gentle eyes but sharp questions. "Mrs. Mitchell, we'll need you to walk us through everything, from finding the dog to tonight's events." Sarah told it all. Tom's death, the evidence, Bobby's betrayal, Duke's impossible return. Santos listened without interrupting, occasionally glancing at her partner who was reviewing the files from Tom's USB drive. "This evidence is damning," Santos finally said. "But I need to ask, why didn't your husband come forward 3 years ago?" "He tried." Sarah pulled Tom's jacket tighter. "He went to the FBI, the military police, even a journalist. But Bobby had connections everywhere. Tom became paranoid, said they were watching him. I thought it was the PTSD talking." "When did you realize he was right?" "When I found Duke dying on the highway, Bobby's reaction told me everything. He wasn't worried about a dangerous dog. He was terrified of what Duke represented, a living witness to his crimes." Santos nodded slowly. "We'll need all the original evidence. Any copies you made. Everything." "What about the custody hearing tomorrow?" "Ma'am, after tonight I don't think you need to worry about custody. Bobby Crawford's testimony won't carry much weight from a jail cell." 4 in the morning. Dr. Hartley's clinic was closed to regular patients, but light blazed from every window. Sarah and Lily waited in the exam room, surrounded by the antiseptic smell of medical crisis. They could hear movement behind the surgery doors, Hartley and his assistant working desperately to save Duke's life. "Is Duke going to heaven with Mommy and Grandpa?" Lily asked, her voice small. Sarah didn't know how to answer. How did you explain that sometimes love wasn't enough, that loyalty couldn't stop bullets, that even heroes died? "I don't know, sweetheart. But he's fighting, just like he's always fought. Because he loves us? Because that's who he is. Duke doesn't know how to give up." The surgery doors opened. Dr. Hartley emerged, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. His surgical scrubs were stained with blood. "He's alive," he said immediately. "I don't know how, but he's alive. The bullet missed his heart by millimeters. It's lodged near his spine. I've stopped the bleeding, repaired what damage I could, but he's paralyzed. The bullet is pressing on his spinal cord. Removing it could kill him. Leaving it means he'll never walk again." Hartley slumped into a chair. "I've seen a lot of wounded animals, Sarah. Most would have given up by now. But Duke, it's like he's refusing to die. Can we see him? He's sedated, won't wake for hours. You should go home, get some rest." "We'll wait." They dozed in the uncomfortable chairs. Lily curled against Sarah like a cat. Dawn came gray and subdued through the clinic windows. Sarah woke to her phone buzzing. 17 missed calls from various numbers. The first voicemail was from Judge Morrison. "Mrs. Mitchell, in light of recent events, tomorrow's custody hearing is postponed indefinitely. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience." The second was from a reporter, then another. Word was spreading fast about the decorated detective who'd sold out his unit, the widow who'd exposed him, and the war dog who'd survived 4 bullets to protect them. "Grandma, Duke's awake." Lily tugged at her sleeve. They found him in recovery, eyes open but unfocused from pain medication. His tail managed a single weak thump when he saw them. The mighty German shepherd who'd faced down armed intruders now looked small and broken on the surgical table. "Hey, soldier," Sarah whispered, stroking his head. "You did good. You did so good." Duke's eyes tracked to Lily, and something passed between them, the wordless communication of survivors. Lily began to sing, the same lullaby from before, and Duke's breathing steadied. "His vitals are improving," Hartley noted, checking monitors. "Heart rate's stabilizing. It's like your presence is literally healing him." The clinic door chimed. FBI agents, wanting statements. Then military investigators, having found Bobby's overseas accounts. The story was unraveling fast. A Taliban kidnapping that had never been reported, a father's desperate choice, a cover-up that had cost 5 more lives. "Katie Crawford wasn't in a car accident," Agent Williams explained. "She was doing humanitarian work in Afghanistan, got grabbed by insurgents. They used her to turn Bobby, then killed her anyway. Instead of coming forward, he buried the truth. And killed anyone who might expose it," Sarah added. "Tom was the only one who figured it out. Bobby made it look like suicide. Would have gotten away with it if you hadn't found Duke." Sarah thought about the bitter irony. Bobby had shot Duke to silence him, dumped him far from town. But Duke's determination to return, to complete his mission, had been Bobby's undoing. The media descended by noon. Vans with satellite dishes lined the street outside the clinic. Sarah refused all interviews, but snippets of the story leaked anyway. "War hero dog exposes corruption. 4 bullets couldn't stop this canine's mission. Loyalty beyond death, Duke's incredible story." Martha Bennett appeared at the clinic, face flushed with shame. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. Bobby told me you were unstable, that the dog was dangerous. I believed him. We all believed him," Sarah replied. "He was good at lying. Is there anything I can do, anything at all?" Sarah thought about it. "Actually, yes. I need a lawyer for the custody hearing. A good one. Martha's nephew, it turned out, was a family law attorney in Denver. By evening, Sarah had representation. The financial pressure that had been crushing her for months suddenly lifted as the community that had judged her now rallied to help. But none of it mattered if Duke didn't survive. Day turned to night. Duke remained stable but paralyzed, his body fighting infections that shouldn't have been survivable. Sarah and Lily maintained their vigil, taking turns reading to him from Tom's old books. Military histories, adventure stories, anything to fill the silence. "Mrs. Mitchell?" Dr. Hartley appeared with X-rays. "I want to show you something. This is Duke's spine from yesterday." He pointed to the bullet's location. "And this is from an hour ago." Sarah stared at the films. "It moved? 3 millimeters. The swelling is pushing it away from the spinal cord. It's not much, but it's hope." Monday arrived with unexpected sunshine. The custody hearing had been rescheduled for afternoon, giving Sarah time to prepare. She left Lily with Duke, the girl refused to leave his side, and met with her new lawyer. "The case is straightforward now," he explained. "Bobby Crawford's arrest eliminates the primary opposition. The judge will likely rule in your favor immediately." "What about the foreclosure?" "Also handled. Turns out the bank paperwork was fraudulent, arranged by Bobby. They're reversing the action and investigating the manager who approved it." Everything was falling into place, except the one thing that mattered most. Duke still couldn't walk. The custody hearing lasted 15 minutes. Judge Morrison reviewed the facts, interviewed Lily briefly, and made her ruling. "Custody is awarded to Sarah Mitchell. With my apologies for the system that failed your family so completely. Mrs. Mitchell, your granddaughter is lucky to have you." Sarah felt no triumph, only relief. One battle won, but the war wasn't over. Not while Duke lay broken in a veterinary clinic. They returned to find commotion at the clinic. Dr. Hartley met them at the door, eyes wide. "Sarah, I don't know how to explain this. Duke, he moved his legs. Not much, just a twitch, but voluntary movement. It shouldn't be possible." They rushed to recovery. Duke lay as before, but his eyes were brighter, more focused. As they watched, his rear leg twitched. Then again, deliberate movement. "Duke!" Lily threw herself beside him. "You're getting better." The dog's tail moved, not just a thump, but a real wag. Weak, limited, but undeniably voluntary. Whatever damage the bullet had done was reversing itself, healing in ways medical science couldn't explain. "I've heard of this," Hartley said quietly. "Spinal swelling resolving, function returning. But never this fast, never this completely. It's a miracle," Sarah finished. "Just say it, doctor. It's a miracle." Over the following days, Duke's recovery accelerated. First small movements, then larger ones. By Thursday, he could lift his head completely. By Friday, he was attempting to stand. The media attention intensified. Duke became a symbol of loyalty, determination, the unbreakable bond between human and animal. Donations poured in for his medical care. Veterans organizations offered support. Someone started a college fund for Lily, but Sarah barely noticed. Her world had shrunk to the clinic, to watching Duke fight his way back from paralysis with the same determination he'd shown protecting them. "Why doesn't he quit?" Lily asked one evening, watching Duke struggle through physical therapy. Sarah thought about Tom, about Eleanor, about all the times life had demanded more than seemed possible to give. "Because that's what love does," she said finally. "It keeps fighting, even when fighting seems impossible. Duke loved your grandpa, and he loves us. That's stronger than any bullet." Saturday morning brought Bobby Crawford's arraignment. Sarah didn't attend, but watched the news coverage. The decorated detective led away in shackles, facing charges of murder, treason, conspiracy. Other arrests followed, the bank manager, 2 cops who'd helped cover Tom's murder. The web of corruption Bobby had spun was finally unraveling. He destroyed so many lives trying to hide one terrible choice, Agent Santos told Sarah. If he'd come forward when Katie was taken, maybe we could have saved her. Instead, he let the guilt eat him alive until he became the very thing he'd once fought against. Sarah felt no satisfaction at Bobby's downfall, only sadness for the families destroyed, the trust betrayed, the good man Tom had been before war and secrets broke him. But in the clinic, something extraordinary was happening. Duke stood on all 4 legs, shaky but upright. His eyes locked on Sarah's, and she saw what had kept him alive through 4 bullets and paralysis. Purpose. He'd had a mission, and he'd completed it. Tom's killers were exposed. His family was safe. Now, finally, Duke could begin to heal. The medical report lay spread across Dr. Hartley's desk like a verdict. 10 days since the shooting, and Duke had defied every prediction. But the latest X-rays showed a truth that couldn't be denied. The 4th bullet remained lodged dangerously close to his spine, a metallic time bomb that surgery might detonate. "The scar tissue is forming around it," Hartley explained, his weathered hands tracing the ghostly images. "His body is trying to wall it off, but any sudden movement, any trauma, and it could shift. If it moves even 2 millimeters, he'll be paralyzed again," Sarah finished. "Permanently this time. Or worse." Hartley removed his glasses, rubbed tired eyes. "Sarah, Duke's recovery is miraculous, but it's fragile. He needs complete rest, minimal movement, no stress. For a normal dog, that might be possible, but Duke—" Sarah looked through the window to the recovery room where Duke stood at attention, watching the door. Even wounded, even after everything, he maintained his post. Asking this dog to stop being a guardian was like asking the sun not to rise. "He's not a normal dog," she said quietly. "He never was." Lily sat beside Duke, reading from a picture book about police dogs. She'd barely left his side except for school, had even convinced the principal to let her do half-days so she could spend afternoons at the clinic. The trauma therapist said it was her way of processing loss, clinging to what remained. "The bullet's like a mean person hiding inside," Lily explained to Duke, her 8-year-old mind trying to make sense of medical terms. "But you're stronger than it. You're stronger than all the mean people." Duke's tail wagged carefully, each movement measured. He'd learned his new limitations quickly, adapting with the intelligence that had made him invaluable in Afghanistan. But Sarah saw the frustration in his eyes when his body wouldn't respond as it once had, when standing too quickly sent shooting pains through his spine. That evening brought unexpected visitors. 3 men in Army dress uniforms stood at the clinic entrance, bearing official documents and somber expressions. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Colonel James Patterson. I served with your husband in Afghanistan." He held out a wooden box. "We're here to correct an oversight." Inside the box lay military medals, a Purple Heart and a Silver Star. Not for Tom, but for military working dog MGH 4521, for Duke. "This dog saved 13 soldiers during his service," Patterson continued, "including your husband. Bobby Crawford tried to have Duke's records destroyed to cover his crimes, but we've restored them. Duke is officially retired with full honors." The younger soldier stepped forward. "Ma'am, I was in that ambush. Private First Class Martinez. That dog—" His voice cracked. "Duke found the IED before we walked into it. Then when the shooting started, he took a bullet meant for me. We thought he died in country. Finding out he's been alive all this time." Duke's ears perked at Martinez's voice. Recognition flickered in those amber eyes, followed by the smallest whine. His tail began to wag, then stopped abruptly as pain shot through his spine. Sarah saw him stiffen, saw the careful way he shifted his weight. "Easy, boy," she murmured. But Duke was already moving, limping toward Martinez with determination that overcame pain. The reunion was quiet, Duke pressing his head against the soldier's leg, Martinez kneeling to bury his face in the dog's fur. "I'm sorry," Martinez whispered. "I'm so sorry we left you behind." Colonel Patterson cleared his throat. "There's more. The Army wants to cover all of Duke's medical expenses, and there's been a collection among the units he served with. It's not much, but..." The check was for $30,000, enough to cover Sarah's debts, save the house, secure Lily's immediate future. Money given by soldiers who remembered a dog that had refused to leave them behind. "I can't accept this," Sarah began. "Ma'am, with respect, you don't have a choice. Duke earned this. Every penny." Patterson's stern expression softened. "Your husband would want you to take it. For Lily." After they left, Sarah found Duke struggling to return to his bed. The emotion of seeing Martinez, the effort of movement, had exhausted him. His legs trembled with each step, and she saw the moment his strength failed. He collapsed with a sharp yelp, rear legs splaying uselessly. "Duke!" Lily rushed to him, but Hartley was already there, skilled hands examining the dog's spine. "He's okay," Hartley said after tense moments. "But this is what I was afraid of." The bullet shifted slightly. "Not enough to cause permanent damage, but enough to warn us. Duke, you stubborn fool, you have to rest." They sedated him lightly, enough to enforce rest. Sarah sat beside him through the night, watching his chest rise and fall, remembering another vigil 3 years ago when Tom had made his final choice. But where Tom had given up, Duke kept fighting. Even sedated, even broken, he fought. "Why didn't you quit?" she asked the sleeping dog. "When Bobby shot you the first time, why crawl back to town? When we found you dying, why hold on? When the paralysis came, why struggle back?" Duke's ear twitched at her voice, but he didn't wake. In sleep, the constant vigilance finally eased from his features. He looked younger, almost peaceful. Lily appeared in the doorway, pillow clutched to her chest. "Grandma, I had the dream again." The dream where Eleanor called out, but Lily couldn't reach her, where Tom stood in shadows trying to say something important. "Doctor." Morris said the dreams were normal, part of grief's process, but knowing that didn't make them easier. Sarah pulled Lily close, and together they watched Duke sleep. 3 broken souls in a veterinary clinic, held together by love and sheer determination. "Is Duke going to die?" Lily asked finally. Sarah thought about the bullet nestled against Duke's spine, about miracles that could reverse at any moment, about the fragility of all they'd rebuilt. "I don't know, sweetheart, but whatever happens, we'll face it together." Duke's eyes opened then, just slightly, finding them in the dimness. His tail moved once, carefully, still here, still watching, still refusing to abandon his post. The night deepened around them, and Sarah held her granddaughter close, drawing strength from a dog who'd taught them all what loyalty truly meant. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fights. But tonight they were together. For now, that was enough. The truth came in pieces, like fragments of a bomb Bobby Crawford had tried to bury. FBI agent Maria Santos sat in Sarah's living room, the house saved by soldiers' donations, spreading classified documents across the coffee table that Tom had built during better days. "We've decrypted Bobby's communications with the Taliban," Santos explained, her voice professionally neutral despite the horror in the files. Katie Crawford wasn't randomly kidnapped. She was targeted because of her father's position in military intelligence. Sarah studied the photos of Katie Crawford, a bright-eyed 23-year-old who'd gone to Afghanistan to teach in girls' schools. Idealistic, brave, doomed by her father's job. In the last photo, taken by her captors, the light had gone from her eyes. They had her for 6 weeks, Santos continued. Bobby gave them patrol routes, supply convoys, personnel files, everything they asked for, but they'd already decided to kill her. The intelligence was just bonus profit. Through the window, Sarah could see Duke in the backyard, lying in the patch of sunlight Tom used to favor. 10 days of enforced rest had stabilized his condition, though he still moved carefully, each step calculated to avoid jarring the bullet that lived beside his spine like an unwelcome tenant. "There's more," Santos said, pulling out another file. "We found Tom's original police report, the one Bobby buried. Your husband didn't just discover the betrayal. He found evidence that Bobby was planning to eliminate everyone who might connect him to Katie's death." Sarah's hands trembled as she read Tom's neat handwriting. He'd documented everything: dates, times, suspicious deaths among their unit. 3 soldiers who'd been in Katie's sector had died in accidents after returning home. Tom had connected the dots, realized he was next. My husband knew Bobby was going to kill him. He suspected. That's why he hid Duke at the Brennan farm, why he created all those evidence caches. Tom was building a dead man's switch. Santos paused. What we can't figure out is why he didn't run. Why stay in Pine Ridge when he knew Bobby was coming? Sarah thought of Tom's final weeks, the way he'd held her tighter each night, spent hours teaching Lily to tie her shoes, even though she already knew how. He'd been saying goodbye. He was tired, she said finally. Tired of running from ghosts, tired of keeping secrets. Maybe he thought if Bobby got what he wanted, you and Lily would be safe. But Bobby couldn't risk it. Even with Tom gone, there was Duke. A living witness who'd been there during the ambush, who knew Bobby's scent, who could identify him as the traitor. Santos gathered the papers. So Bobby shot Duke and dumped him, thinking that ended it. He didn't count on Duke's determination to complete his mission. That evening, Lily sat beside Duke, carefully brushing his coat while avoiding the tender areas around his spine. The dog bore it patiently, though Sarah saw him flinch when the brush came too close to the surgical scars. "Grandma says you knew Grandpa in the war," Lily said conversationally. "Did you protect him like you protected us?" Duke's tail moved once, carefully. "I wish you could talk. I bet you have lots of stories about Grandpa." She leaned closer, whispered conspiratorially. "Sometimes I forget what his voice sounded like. Mom's too. Is that bad?" Duke turned his head, touched his nose to Lily's cheek. The gesture was so gentle, so deliberately comforting, that tears sprang to Sarah's eyes. This dog, living with constant pain, carrying a bullet that could paralyze him at any moment, still found strength to comfort a grieving child. The doorbell interrupted the moment. Sarah found Judge Morrison on her porch, looking older than her years. "May I come in? There's something you need to know about the custody case." They sat at the kitchen table while the judge explained, "Bobby Crawford wasn't working alone in trying to take Lily. We've discovered he had power of attorney documents, forged but convincing. If he'd gotten custody, he would have controlled her trust fund." Sarah finished. Eleanor had left a small life insurance policy for Lily, nothing substantial, but enough to matter to a desperate man. More than that, Lily was leverage. With her in his control, he could have forced you to return any evidence Tom had hidden. She was going to be his insurance policy. Sarah felt sick. Bobby had sat at this table, had eaten her food, had pretended to grieve with them while planning to steal her granddaughter. "There's going to be a trial," Morrison continued. "You'll need to testify. Lily too, possibly. Are you prepared for that?" Through the window, Sarah watched Duke struggle to his feet as Lily headed inside. Even with damaged nerves and constant pain, he followed her, maintaining his protective watch. "We'll do whatever's necessary," Sarah said. "Tom died for this truth. Duke nearly died protecting it. We won't let that be for nothing." That night, unable to sleep, Sarah found herself in the basement where everything had started. Tom's footlocker sat open, its secrets revealed. She pulled out a photo. Tom and Duke in Afghanistan, both young and whole, before betrayal and bullets changed everything. Duke appeared at the top of the stairs, moving carefully down each step. He shouldn't be navigating stairs with his injury, but try explaining that to a dog who'd crawled miles with 3 bullets in him. "You miss him too, don't you?" Sarah asked as Duke settled beside her with a soft grunt of pain. She found Tom's journal, open to a random page. His handwriting filled the margins. "Duke saved Martinez today. Kid froze when the shooting started, but Duke knocked him down just as bullets hit where his head had been. This dog has more courage than most men I know." Another entry. "Bobby's acting strange, distracted, scared. Something's wrong, but he won't talk about it. Duke growls whenever Bee's around now. Dog knows something I don't." The final entry, dated the day before Tom died. "If something happens to me, trust Duke. He knows the truth. He'll protect Sarah and Lily. I've made sure of it." Duke rested his head on Sarah's knee, careful not to put too much weight on his spine. In the dim basement light, she could see the network of scars that mapped his service, the old wounds from Afghanistan, the newer ones from protecting them, each mark a testament to loyalty that transcended species. "He knew," Sarah whispered. "Tom knew he was going to die, and he made sure you'd find your way to us." Duke's tail moved once, acknowledging a truth that needed no words. Footsteps on the stairs, Lily in her pajamas, trailing her favorite blanket. "I heard Duke get up. Is he okay?" "He's fine, sweetheart, just keeping me company." Lily settled on Sarah's other side, creating a small circle of warmth in the cold basement. "Mom used to say that love doesn't die when people do, that it stays around, looking for ways to help." Sarah pulled her granddaughter close, feeling Duke's solid presence on her other side. 2 species, 3 generations, bound by loss and love and the determination of one extraordinary dog who'd refused to let death win. "Your mom was right," Sarah said. "Love finds a way, even if it has to crawl home on 4 paws and fight through bullets to do it." Outside, dawn was breaking over Pine Ridge. Bobby Crawford sat in a federal holding cell awaiting trial. The truth Tom had died protecting was finally free. And in a basement that had once held secrets, a family sat together, guarded by a scarred soldier who'd taught them all that some bonds are stronger than death itself. Duke shifted slightly, a small whine escaping as the movement jarred his spine. The bullet still waited, a constant threat. But for now, in this moment, they were together, safe, healing. For a dog who'd given everything to complete his mission, it was enough. November arrived with unexpected warmth, Indian summer painting Pine Ridge in shades of gold and amber. 6 months had passed since Duke had stood between them and Bobby Crawford's violence, and the town that had once mocked Sarah now embraced her as a symbol of resilience. The Thanksgiving preparations filled the house with purpose. Sarah kneaded dough for pies while Lily practiced setting the table, counting places for guests who'd become family through shared trauma. Dr. Hartley would come, of course, and Agent Santos, who'd stayed in touch long after the case closed. The soldiers from Duke's unit had promised to drive down from Fort Carson. Duke supervised from his bed near the kitchen door, no longer able to maintain his constant patrol but still positioned to monitor all entrances. The bullet remained lodged near his spine, inoperable and ever-present. He'd adapted to his limitations with military precision, conserving energy, choosing his movements carefully. "Should I set a place for Duke?" Lily asked, holding an extra plate. "Duke has his own special spot," Sarah reminded her, indicating the elevated dog bed Dr. Hartley had provided. Eating from floor level put too much strain on Duke's spine. The doorbell rang earlier than expected. Duke's head lifted, alert but calm. He'd learned to differentiate between threats and visitors, though the effort still cost him. Martinez stood on the porch holding a small carrier. "Mrs. Mitchell, I hope I'm not too early. I brought, well..." A tiny German Shepherd puppy peered out through the carrier's mesh, maybe 8 weeks old, all paws and ears and attitude. "This is Valor," Martinez explained, setting the carrier down carefully. "From a military line. His grandmother served with Duke in Afghanistan." I thought, well, Duke can't work anymore, but maybe he could train the next generation? Duke pulled himself to his feet with visible effort, approaching the carrier with dignity despite the tremor in his rear legs. The puppy wiggled frantically, tiny tail a blur of motion. When Martinez opened the carrier, Valor tumbled out and immediately tried to climb onto Duke's back. "Careful!" Lily cried, but Duke stood firm, allowing the puppy to explore. Something shifted in the old soldier's eyes, not quite healing, but purpose. He sniffed the puppy thoroughly, then gave a single, approving lick. "Would you look at that?" Dr. Hartley said from the doorway, arriving with his traditional green bean casserole. "Duke's got himself a recruit." The house filled gradually. Santos arrived with wine and stories from Bobby's trial, life without parole, assets seized to compensate his victims' families. The soldiers brought donations they'd collected for Lily's college fund, embarrassed by their own generosity. "Duke saved my son," one mother explained, pressing an envelope into Sarah's hands. "This doesn't begin to repay that debt." They ate too much, laughed often, and carefully avoided the empty chairs that would always remain at Sarah's table. Duke stayed alert despite his exhaustion, dividing his attention between his guests and the puppy who'd claimed the spot beside his bed. As evening approached, Lily stood to make an announcement. "I wrote something for school, about being thankful. Can I read it?" She cleared her throat, paper trembling slightly in her hands. "I'm thankful for my grandma who never gives up even when things are really hard. I'm thankful for all the people who helped us when we needed it. But mostly, I'm thankful for Duke, who showed me that love means protecting others even when you're hurt. He can't run anymore, and sometimes he cries when he thinks we're not looking, but he still guards my door every night. That's what heroes do. They keep going, even when they're broken." The room fell silent. Duke's tail thumped once against his bed, the only sound in a house full of people fighting tears. "Out of the mouths of babes," Hartley murmured, raising his glass. "To Duke, to all the heroes who keep going when they're broken." "To Duke," the room echoed. Later, after the guests had gone and dishes were done, Sarah found Duke teaching Valor to sit. The puppy was hopeless, more interested in chewing Duke's ears than learning commands, but Duke persisted with patient corrections. "He's got your stubbornness," Sarah told him. "God help us all." A knock at the door, too late for visitors. Duke's demeanor changed instantly, protective instincts overriding pain. But when Sarah checked the peephole, she found only a delivery driver with an overnight package. Inside was a leather journal and a note. "Mrs. Mitchell, I served with Tom and Duke in Afghanistan. I've carried this for 3 years not knowing what to do with it. Tom asked me to get it to you if anything happened to him. I'm sorry it took so long to find the courage. Captain Michael Brennan." Tom's field journal. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it, finding pages of her husband's thoughts from his final deployment. Duke appeared at her side, recognizing the scent perhaps, or simply sensing her need. She read aloud, knowing somehow that Duke needed to hear. "Duke got hit today. Bullet meant for me. Dog didn't even whine, just kept fighting until the threats were neutralized. Doc says he'll make it, but the guilt is eating me alive. How many times can one soul save your life before the debt becomes unbearable?" Another entry. "Bobby's daughter is missing. He's falling apart. I've never seen him like this." Duke won't go near him anymore. It's like the dog senses something we can't see. The final entry. I'm sending Duke home with Brennan. Too many accidents happening to guys from our unit. If something happens to me, Duke will find his way to Sarah. He knows her from the photos I showed him every damn night. Sounds crazy, but this dog understands more than most people. Sarah, if you're reading this, trust Duke. He carries my love for you in every heartbeat. Lily appeared in her nightgown, Valor cradled in her arms. Grandma, I can't sleep. Bad dreams? No. Good ones. Mom was there, and Grandpa. They said Duke did his job and now he can rest. She looked at the old soldier with two wise eyes. Is Duke tired, Grandma? Sarah studied Duke, saw the exhaustion he could no longer hide, the pain he bore with silent dignity. 6 months of constant vigilance despite his injuries had taken their toll. He was tired. So very tired. Yes, sweetheart. Duke is tired, but he won't rest because he's still protecting us. That's right. Lily set Valor down, knelt beside Duke with careful movements. It's okay, she whispered, small hands gentle on his graying muzzle. Valor's here now. He's little, but he'll learn. You can rest. Duke looked between the child and the puppy, intelligence flickering in those amber eyes. Slowly, deliberately, he nudged Valor toward Lily. A passing of the torch, perhaps. A message that his replacement had arrived. For the first time since Sarah had brought him home, Duke laid his head down completely, releasing the tension he'd carried for months. Not giving up. Duke would never give up. But finally allowing himself to trust that others could share the watch. That's good, Lily murmured, curling up beside him. You don't have to be the only guard dog anymore. Sarah covered them both with Tom's old army blanket, then settled into her chair with his journal. Outside, November wind rattled the windows, but inside, her small family was safe. A grandmother, a child, a wounded warrior, and a puppy too young to understand the legacy he'd inherited. Duke's breathing deepened into real sleep, the kind that had eluded him for months. On duty still, but no longer alone. Surrounded by love, teaching the next generation, carrying out one last mission that had nothing to do with war, and everything to do with healing. The journal's pages fluttered in the lamplight, Tom's words reaching across time. The best soldiers know when to fight, and when to let others take the lead. Duke will understand when his war is over. Looking at her protector finally at peace, Sarah whispered, Not over yet, soldier. But you can rest now. We've got the watch. To all of you who've known the weight of loss, who've buried loved ones and wondered if hope could ever bloom again and hearts turned to stone by grief, Duke's story is your story. How many of us have felt like Sarah, surrounded by a community that judges our choices while we're barely holding ourselves together? How many have clung to something others called foolish, a memory, a tradition, a dying pet? Because letting go meant losing the last piece of someone we loved. Duke reminds us that sometimes the most broken souls save each other, that loyalty transcends death, and that even at 52, 62, or 72, we can still fight for what matters. This Thanksgiving season, as many of us face empty chairs and silent phones, remember that love doesn't end with goodbye. It transforms, finding new ways to protect and heal through unexpected angels, sometimes with 4 paws and wounded hearts that match our own. We'd love to hear from you. What unexpected blessing appeared in your life when you thought all hope was lost? Have you ever been Duke or Sarah in someone else's story, the one who refused to give up when everyone else walked away? Please share your thoughts below.